Hey, folks, good evening and welcome to Phantoms and Monsters Radio. Thanks for joining me. I want to welcome all new listeners and members to the channel, as well as the first timers in the chat. So, tonight, throughout the world, there are numerous tales of mermaids, mermen, sprites, frogmen, etc. These stories appear in literature, film, television, games, and even in comics. Aquatic humanoids are said to be legends and fiction, despite people having continually report these real-life encounters and sightings of these elusive creatures. So in this presentation, I'm going to offer a small, though interesting, representation of eyewitness statements reported globally. So I'm going to start off with this brief account. This incident occurred in the late 1980s at Tanjung Aru Beach in Malaysia. The witness remembered seeing a mermaid who saved his life. Now, he states, basically, I was alone playing with the sand, building a sandcastle, I guess, and somehow I was pulled by a huge wave and drowning. While I was in the water, I saw a silhouette of a lady with long curly hair swimming toward me in the water. She basically grabbed me with one hand and held on to her and saw that she had a fishtail instead of legs. Everything was so fast. I was back on the beach gasping for air. I looked around and saw my parents. They were oblivious to the fact that I almost died in the water. This occurred in the late 1980s. Now, I'm not aware if she hurt me or not, but I assume she saved me. I don't remember feeling anything but relief. She probably saw or stalked at me even before I was swept away by the waves. Now, I don't really remember the mermaid's face. All I can remember is that she had long, bright, wavy hair, a fishtail for legs, and her upper body was human-like, bare-chested, and she was super fast. I don't know if she was evil. All I know is she saved me, and if it weren't for her, I'd be dead. I like to think of her as my sea mom, wherever she may be. I hope she's doing fine. So anyway, let's get started with tonight's show.
Of phantoms and monsters. They exist among us, and sometimes they win. Even the devil was an angel once. The world has its own rules, and these rules are not human. Some of us seek answers to the origin and existence of cryptids and the unexplained. Join us as we venture beyond the known and accepted boundaries. Welcome to our nightmare. I think you're going to like it.
So before I go any further, I want to mention that this channel is made possible by you clicking on the subscribe and like buttons and by sharing our programming. Super chat and super thanks donations are always appreciated. You can click the dollar icon located below the chat box, and the Buy Me a Coffee link is also shown below, so thanks for your consideration. Now, your comments are always welcome. Tell me which accounts you found interesting in the presentation or suggestions for upcoming shows. I want to again thank our chat moderators, Bernadette, Marla, Thomas, and Mike, for their commitment to me and the channel. Now, if you're in the chat and have a question, please use all caps, and I'll try to get to each one after my presentation. So before I talk about this next account, I'm going to pop something up here for you to look at because it's related to this next account. When a Devonshire man in Hope's Nose, Torquay in UK, photographing scenery. He then notices a man standing on the rocks below him. The photos and the reactions seem to suggest an aquatic cryptid. So he states, the guy's name is John. I've actually known John for a while. He states, I was on Hope's Nose, Torquay, Devon, England, and it was a very cold day. Now, this place is located on the southwest shore of the English Channel, and it's actually a resort town. There didn't seem to be anyone about, which meant I had the whole place to myself. I have been visiting Hope's Nose quite a lot lately, as I really do enjoy the fresh sea air combined with the smell of the pine trees there. I especially like the view from the cliff top looking out towards Statue Rock and the sea. There I often like to stand and take photographs. Now, I had just walked down from the grassy area to the cliff when suddenly the surrounding sounds around me faded away, leaving the area completely silent, which was very strange and really made the place feel quite eerie. I looked around and then suddenly spotted someone standing down below over the rocks. They were eating what appeared to be a ripped open fish, and I thought to myself that this was rather strange. There's really no way to safely get down from those rocks. The only way that they could have accessed the area was by boat, as it was just too treacherous to climb down there, that with all the falling rocks. Whoever it was, they seemingly noticed me standing there observing them from the edge of the cliff. They instantly looked at me and then threw down the partly eaten fish. I immediately took a photograph of them with my Nikon P900 camera. I could see that whoever it was, they were wearing some type of black garb. At first I thought it was just a person, but then I saw its face. I almost lost my balance and nearly fell over the edge of the cliff in complete shock. I had never seen anything quite like it before. It really was quite hideous. It was the most unholy looking creature that I've ever laid eyes upon. It had a wide set of black eyes with no sign of a nose. The creature then made a strange gurgling sound and then hissed at me in a threatening manner, which in turn made me shout out some profanities toward it while raising my fist in complete anger. With that, the creature ran toward the sea and dove into the icy cold water, where it then quickly swam away, disappearing down into the murky depths of the sea. Now, I was completely shocked and horrified, as I really thought that it was just somebody mucking around trying to scare the crap out of me, but now I knew for sure that it was something strange and possibly otherworldly. There was no way anyone could swim in that cold water, especially at that time of year when the temperature had plummeted to such a low level. They would instantly get hypothermia and drown, so I really didn't know what to think. I had seemingly witnessed a real merman creature, and I was just left standing utterly astonished by what I had just seen. Now, I thought to myself, this is utterly absurd. There must be a logical explanation. I continued to stand there for a little while longer, looking down upon the sea, wondering if the creature would resurface once again, but unfortunately it never did. At least I had successfully managed to capture the strange merman-type creature within a photograph as proof. Now, my life is very strange indeed. Who else gets to witness such peculiar things within their day-to-day life? I once thought things like this were complete fantasy, but having seemingly witnessed these bizarre cryptid creatures firsthand, I can safely say that they are totally real and a reality within our generated world. The old tales from the distant past of strange mythological creatures appears to be completely true, which I find to be very exciting. Scientists should endeavor to study these weird, extraordinary events that have occurred over the years instead of trying to cover them up or ignore them just because they don't fit their scientific narrative. It does not mean these strange things do not exist. Now, this incident took place at 4:04 p.m. on the 8th of December, 2021 at the Hope's Nose in Torquay, and that's in Devonshire, England. And John also, he also has had some strange sightings. He had a winged humanoid sighting several years ago that he sent to me. So yeah, he does get quite a few bizarre sightings and reports that he sends to me. Though I haven't heard from him. I think this report was maybe 3 years ago or almost 3 years ago. So that's the last I heard from him. So anyway, this next account, an experienced sailor along with a 30-year U.S. Navy captain witnessed a brown, scaly lizard humanoid rise to the Chesapeake Bay surface and blink at them. What did they see? Now, this account was discussed several years ago on the Encounters with Strangers podcast, and I was given permission to use it. Anyway, they state, we were moving up the east coast of the United States to the Chesapeake Bay. I was working on a 41-foot sailboat out in the middle of the Chesapeake. There were seven other men on the boat that day. We were taking it out for a test cruise, and we're expected to be out about 12 hours. So this was in the mid-1980s. The weather prediction resources weren't as reliable as they are today, and we found ourselves caught up in an unexpected storm. The winds were gusting to 50 mile an hour, edging in the weak hurricane range. But we were lucky. There was one particularly experienced guy on board who had sensed the storm approaching, and that it was going to be serious. So we'd rigged the storm sounds just in time, just before the storm hit. If we hadn't, I'm certain we would have all died. Well, as it was, I fully expected to die at any moment during that storm. So we called for help, and for at least 15 minutes, we were in a maelstrom with absolutely zero visibility, and then it passed. The storm was over. So by about 3 p.m., everything had calmed down. There was still cloud cover, but the ambient light allowed us to see about 2 miles or so in any direction. It's worth mentioning at this point that after fierce storms like that, it's common, particularly in the shallower depths near land masses, for things to be dredged up off the seafloor. So we're all on deck working lines and checking for damage, and the bay around us is still choppy. It's churning and foaming. Old-timey sailors used to use the saying, the sea is confused. Anyway, I looked about 15 feet off the starboard side and saw something swim to the surface, pause, and stare at us, or should I say glare at us, then submerge again. I got a good look at it. It was like a thin man, a humanoid shape. It was lean, but it had muscular arms, and its skin was covered in scales like a snake. Its head was human-like, but its eyes weren't. They were big with thick, heavy lids. Now, I noticed this because as it stared at us, it blinked at them slowly and deliberately, then dove back into the water. Let me just say at this point that I'm not affected by drugs or alcohol. I was not affected by drugs and alcohol, and I hadn't been injured in the storm. If anything, I was elated just to be alive, so my senses were heightened, not dulled. Now, when this happened, I had about 6 years of experience on ships and fishing boats. I'd seen squid, octopi, flying fish, sharks, etc. in the waters all over the world. I wasn't the kind of guy to see a patch of seaweed and think it was a sea monster. I made an instant decision that I wasn't going to say anything to anyone. What was I going to say? I just saw a strange humanoid aquatic monster. Just take my word for it? Well, the other men on the boat were mechanics and engineers, and I had no desire to get a reputation as a flake. So I'm standing there in my life vest, soaking wet, hooked onto the steel lifeline, still feeling relieved to be alive and wondering what the hell I just saw, when one of the other sailors said, I just saw a brown thing pop up on the surface. It looked like a lizard man with a scaly face. It blinked at us with those big eyes and went back under. Yeah, I said, I saw it too. No one else said that they had seen it. And to this day, I'm surprised I blurted it out like that, but I got the courage because the other sailor, the one who saw it, was a United States captain with over 30 years experience in the Navy. He was respected and liked by the crew, and I guess that's what gave me the confidence. So later that day, we sailed back to the pier without saying another word of what we had seen in the water. Now, to this day, I still don't know what it was, but I know it wasn't a man. No man could have been out in that water, and no man could have looked like that thing I saw, the thing that looked me in the eye that day. So this next account, after a vehicle carrying children plunged into the waters of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, divers experienced compelling evidence of the presence of underwater humanoids. Now, the witness states, the strange underwater and possibly evil mermaids are very much real. Having witnessed them once in my life, I can testify to their existence. But they're not the pretty women they're being portrayed as. I'm living here in the Caribbean on the islands of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Now, back in 2015, on the 12th of January, a vehicle carrying school children lost control going down a steep hill and plunging into the sea. Now, 8 children were killed, 6 of which were recovered. When we, the villagers, got to the scene, the young people's bodies were floating in the water. We put on our diving gear and jumped in to recover the bodies. Now, 2 other men and I were trying to grab the body of one of the girls who was my cousin. When one of the men got close enough to make a grab, there came this entity out of nowhere screaming angrily. Yes, screaming, snarling, and saying, "Don't touch her or else you'll see what would happen." This thing was pure evil. Its face was human. It had a Nigerian accent. Its body was colorful. We were terribly scared. The creature immediately grabbed the girl's body and took off at an amazing speed, then just disappeared. There were about 15 divers in the water. When we got to the shore, we couldn't speak for over 2 hours. Scared beyond imagination. When we told the people what happened, they said some of the other divers said they saw the same thing. Now, the elders in the community began telling us stories about the same creature from long ago, before electricity came to our village. They said the young people were a sacrifice. Now, from that day, I will never look at the ocean the same way again. I wish we had evidence to show what we saw. Waterproof phones and cameras weren't popular here back in 2015. To this day, the other divers still talk about it. I've stopped diving since it happened. We've been called all kinds of names, but I know what I saw and what I heard the creatures say. Since then, I've been researching shapeshifters and stuff like that on the internet, and a lot of things about the top have been leading me to Africa. Also, I've taken an interest in Nigerian movies where they show a lot of stuff about this said topic. I know the frustration about not having evidence to support our claims. Now, up to this day, we haven't found those 2 girls' bodies. The Coast Guard searched for almost a month. We searched the rocky beaches for miles for weeks. About a year ago, I and a couple of friends were night fishing. When we got to the beach in our area, we heard a noise, almost like someone or something wailing in the water just offshore. It frightened us. For almost a minute or 2, we just stood there and couldn't move or say anything. Our water is rocky and shallow. So when I got home, I was scrolling through Facebook when I saw a video that a guy had posted somewhere on a fishing vessel experiencing the same sound. He was then visited by the CIA or something about the same video. So this next account, a Scottish outdoorsman and former armed services member recalls encountering swimming humanoids while canoeing near Sheant Isles in the Outer Hebrides, which is northern Scotland. Were these mermaids or mermen? So he tells me, many years ago, my brother and I spent several weeks canoeing and hiking through the Hebrides. We saw a collection of humanoid animals swimming around and resting on the coast of the Sheant Islands. Neither of us really told anyone as to who'd believe us. Ultimately, we realized that there are experiences in life that can't be believed without seeing them firsthand. They were a dark color all over, bluish, longer than an average human and more like a shark, lean and almost rubbery to the touch. The head and neck were less pounced and distinct. Arms were shorter and webbed from the body to the arm. Had a full-on tail too, but narrow and more pointed. Now, most people wouldn't believe me, yet I've spent many years since leaving the armed forces in search and rescue in Scotland. Just excuse me a second, folks. I got to cut something off here. Okay. Now, those creatures weren't the only anomalous situations. Several soldiers and I were stalked across the Black Mountains of Wales for 3 days. How anyone managed to follow us without being discovered still has me confused. We found tracks and could literally see them at night. They just vanish each night. So I spoke to my brother about the incident on the Sheant Isles. He recalled being absolutely terrified at the time and even admitted to crying that night when we went to sleep due to feeling so completely helpless and creeped out knowing there were unknown animals nearby. And to this day, he's very wary of large bodies of natural water. Now, my brother's 6'10" and weighs about 120 kilograms at the time and had played rugby since we were children. He's big and powerful. I felt safe with him, yet very protected as I'm the eldest, even though I am the eldest. Now, after this conversation, I was quite annoyed that he felt like this, and I wasn't aware. I was oblivious to him and really should have stayed awake in case anything untoward had happened. Hindsight is a fantastic burden at times. You know what came to mind? The ninjin of Japanese mythology. White humanoids are said to inhabit the seas around Antarctica. Me and my brothers are going back to Sheant in the Hebrides next summer. If we encounter anything, I'll absolutely update this post. Now, there is a legend of the Blue Men of Minch on the Sheant Islands. And I'm just wondering if that's what the witness observed. So if he gets back to me, we'll see. Now, this next account came from a reader who said they had read a few of the mermaid stories I had written about on my website. A teacher once told his class about similar tales from the Philippines. So he tells me, the year was 2000 and I was 17 years old taking an extracurricular class in my senior year. The class was regarding world history and specifically about the Philippines. The woman teaching the class was a historian anthropologist who had spent her last 10 years living and studying in the Philippines. After telling us the important stuff the last 5 minutes of the class, drifted off topic to her daily life there. Being curious kids that we were, we kept prodding for more personal info and eventually started getting stories of scary encounters with creatures native to that area. Now, she told us that mermaids were very real. Mermen and merwomen were not fairy tales, but real inhabitants of the Philippine Islands. She said the mermen would come out on certain nights and pull themselves up to the shore and inland. Some mermen even brought their 3-pronged tridents with them as weapons. and they would pull themselves into the city in search of people out too late, unprotected at night. Now, the mer women would sing and lure fishermen and children to be drowned. She started telling us of the wild ghost dogs, but a parent jumped in, and told her it was inappropriate to be told, for the stories to be told in school. The lady actually got in trouble for sharing those stories, and we had a brief apology lecture where we were assured that those were just crazy stories and none of it was true, and she was out of line for saying otherwise. As you can imagine, they've been burnt in my mind, and mermaids have fascinated me ever since. Do you think that these creatures are real? I've read a few on your blog, and I'm fascinated with these stories. Now, this next account came from the Caspian Sea in the territorial waters of Azerbaijan, and this occurred in late March 2005. And this actually did make the news. And in fact, there were several sightings around that same period of time. Azerbaijani fishermen from the trawler Baku were stunned to see a weird entity in the water. The entity swam for a long period of time near the trawler, parallel to it, reported by the captain of the ship in the local newspaper when he arrived at the Iranian port in Enzeli. At first, the crew thought that the entity was some sort of unknown large fish, but soon they noticed that the entity's head had distinct hairs on it, and the front fins were not fins at all, but webbed hands. They acknowledged that the entity looked more like a humanoid than any kind of known fish. They all concluded that they had never seen anything like it in the waters. The amphibian entity then plunged deep into the waters and disappeared. Now, when the captain returned to Azerbaijan, people there refused to talk to him about the incident, alleging that he and his crew had been drunk. But the Iranians took the report seriously because of numerous rumors about a man from the sea were circulating in Iran long before this report. After publication in the local newspaper, Iranian residents wrote numerous letters to the newspaper reporting that their own encounters with a similar entity. The common opinion was that this underwater volcanic activity in the region and the intensification of oil extraction in the Caspian Sea had somehow caused unknown deepwater dwellers to venture up to the surface. Now, the entity is shorter than of the average height, about 165 to 168 centimeters, thick set, with a protruding belly, feet with flippers, and four-fingered webbed hands. The skin is pale yellow gray in color and has stiff black-green hair. Arms and legs are slightly shorter and thicker than that of humans. Sharp nails grow on its hands and at the tip of its hump-shaped nose, forming something like a dolphin's beak. The ears are not visible. The eyes are big and round, and the mouth is quite big with a protruding upper jaw, smoothly connected to the neck without a chin. The smaller lip is similar to that of a shark's jaw. In Iran, this amphibian humanoid is known as Runa Shah, which means sovereign of waters and rivers. Interestingly, the fishermen have noticed that the fish seem to react when the entity appears, like if there were distant extrasensory communication between the entity and the fish. Other witnesses reported seeing the same or similar entity in several other small fishing villages. Now, this next account took place several miles off the coast of Florida on the Atlantic Ocean, and this happened in an afternoon in 1988. Professional scuba diver Robert Foster was diving alone looking for mysterious undersea formations when he noticed a disturbance in the water. When he turned to look, he saw a vague, shadowy figure slashing towards him. All around him, the water had begun to churn wildly and clouds of sediment were swirling. Now, as the creature rushed toward him, it appeared to undulate rather than glide. When the fast-moving form got to within 20 yards of him, he noticed something odd about it. The appendages, like arms, seemed to be reaching out toward him, and the end of each arm appeared to have sharp, taloned hands. He then saw the creature in full view. He saw an unmistakable pair of breasts, long flowing hair, smooth skin, and scaled tail from the waist down. It appeared to be half woman, half fish. Now, Foster said, "I've never seen such evil hate in the eyes of any human or animal before." Before the creature would reach him, Foster shot up towards the surface and was able to scamper over the side of his craft to safety. He never saw the creature again. Now, there have been mermaid and merman reports from various locations on the entire coast of Florida, including several historical accounts from the Spanish explorers and Native American inhabitants. Actually, I talked to a Royal Caribbean cruise steward in 2004 who swears he witnessed a mermaid in the shallows off the island of Grand Bahama near Freeport. He described it as a 5-foot, green-colored, fish-like human with arms, large, frightening eyes, and long red hair. So this last account, the witness states, "I'm from Louisiana, and the Mississippi River runs into Lake Bruin area where I lived while growing up. My family are natives from that region where Native Americans and African Americans were integrated through slavery. We have all heard the stories of the river mermaids and water sprites. When I was 12, and I'll never forget it, I had plucked plums and pomegranates walking home from school. I put them in my backpack and walked down to the swimming area that my great-grandfather told me about. I was sitting on the pier eating the fruit when a hand reached out of the water. I freaked out, then threw the plum. It grabbed it. I was so frightened that I was frozen. Then the half-eaten plum was thrown back at me. I saw a huge log, and there it was leaning against it. The humanoid had blackish green skin with a huge tail and big black eyes. I threw some more plums, and the creature retrieved them. After a few minutes, it swam away, but I'll never forget that day." So, folks, that's all I got. You got any questions? I want to thank Lala Bright for her $9.99 super sticker. Much appreciated. And the Short Order Cook for her $10 donation. Thanks very much. Much appreciated. People got any questions? Sir Wolf. Hi, Lon. Have you heard of large oceans beneath the Earth's crust? Perhaps some creatures come up from there. Yeah, these stories of large oceans underneath the Earth's crust have been around for eons. I guess if it's real, there very well could be something that comes up, though. Quite frankly, I don't think we've had any evidence to really prove that these areas exist. Of course, the Bird expedition, he outlined where he had been able to go underground and saw other areas where life thrived at. But honestly, who knows if that's true or not. But yeah, it's something that we've heard about for a long time. Maybe one day we'll figure it out. But I guess if they're there, it very well could come up. I want to thank Ryan again for his offering a Phantoms of Monsters Radio membership. Very much appreciated. Magnus, any accounts recently of selkies? I haven't had a selkie report for a long time. Seriously. Nancy Malcolm, do you have any reports of water sprites? Yeah, there is one particular story, and it's from Nigeria. The Matawami, I think that's what the name of the creature is. It's a water sprite / mermaid type creature. It supposedly kidnaps people who come too close to the water. I had another water sprite account told to me by Leonard Dan, who is an elder in the Navajo Nation in New Mexico and in Arizona. This happened on the San Juan River. He saw something on a rock that he swore was some type of humanoid or sprite or something like that. He said it was about 3 foot tall and it was sitting on a rock. And about that same time, they also were experiencing Bigfoot gifting around the area. So I don't know if that was related to it or not, but I thought it was an interesting report. I might have to dig that out one day. I've got it somewhere. Ryan, of the cryptids, I think the aquatic humanoids is most likely evolutionary-wise that came from the ocean. The ocean is incredibly unexplored. Just makes sense to me. Yeah, I mean, there's just so much out there we don't know about. Who knows what's out there? You know, I think it's more plausible than a lot of other cryptid sightings, to be quite frank with you. Every once in a while, I get lucky enough to get a report, but yeah, I think you're right about that. I think it's very possible, and I mean worldwide, of these type of creatures. And look, most of my reports came from places other than North America. So, yeah, people are seeing something. But of course, there's been a tradition in North America, especially in the Caribbean, around the Bahamas, Jamaica, and the Leeward Island areas of mermaid-like creatures. So if you're lucky enough, if you ever go on a cruise, ask some stewards or people who work on the boat. They'll tell you some pretty interesting stories. Jose Sanchez, where some or many of these merman accounts circa 80s or also 90s? Were some or many of these? Yeah, a lot of them were the 80s and the 90s, but you know, I've been getting recent ones as well. Some of the older accounts actually come from the islands there in the Caribbean and that area there. Now there have been sightings of these humanoids in, you know, the Caspian Sea, the Black Sea, in the Eastern Mediterranean, around Crete in particular, off the coast of Israel. I have heard of some, coast of Lebanon. So they are seen. I mean, our people do report them. I don't know exactly what they're seeing, but they do report them. Ryan, thanks again for donating. Oh, he donated 5 gifted memberships. I'm sure our folks and people in the chat will very much appreciate that and take advantage of it. Thanks again. Dagnabbit. A lady swimming with an inner tube felt a powerful grip around the knee that dragged her underwater, but she broke free, had large green stained gash marks on her leg. Where did that happen at? That's interesting. I have talked about divers experiencing very similar things. And in fact, I have had off the coast of California, and in fact, around Malibu, and also up on the Santa Monica Pier area in the beach, there have been reports of divers or people going out that have seen or experienced some type of humanoid creatures. So the sightings are made and reported. Beat 3 airspace line. I can't remember, but there were ancient writings about humans that split off and became water people. Yeah, the Sumerians talked about that. And I think the ancient Persians did as well. So, yeah, that is part of their culture and part of their lore. And of course, that would be in the Mesopotamia area, where it drains into the Persian Gulf. Yeah, there's a lot of stories within the Muslim world of these type of creatures. They're pretty vague, and a lot of times it's part of their, part of the religious story, or other accounts that are in the Quran or other religious text. But there are mentions of these things. Robo 1776, thank you so much for your donation. Lon, any info on the color and skin types? With 1,000 scientific dives, I've seen 2 blob-like creatures with human-like eyes off the coast of Maryland. 100 feet down, any Maryland stories? Well, I did give the one Maryland story of the Chesapeake. That was up further into the bay, so it was off the coast of Maryland. As far as Maryland goes, it would only be the Chesapeake. It wouldn't be any of the rivers or anything that I have heard of any humanoid sightings that I can think of. I'll have to look into that, but I appreciate the donation. Dagnammit. When will that dash cam footage be coming out about the flying humanoid? Oh, it's out. I posted it up on the blog. And in fact, if you go to Phantoms Monsters YouTube channel, it's up there as well. And in fact, we got another video yesterday of something that was flying around the lakeshore of Chicago about a year ago. And I'm trying to get the video cleaned up right now. Now, Tommy worked on it a little bit. I got 2 other videographers working on it as well, trying to pull it out. Now, I do have one that looks, you can kind of see this thing. It does look like it has pretty good size, and it has a pretty good wingspan, and it's dark in color. It was taken at the end of the day. It wasn't completely dark yet, but you could see it because of the horizon and some of the light coming from the horizon. But I'm going to have that up in a couple of days. But no, that dash cam footage is up. You'll just have to look for the it's Florence. If you go into the blog, search Florence County, Wisconsin, and it'll come up. But the video is also there, and the video is also on the YouTube channel. Jose Sanchez. There are accounts of swimming Bigfoot. Any confused relations to some of the other sea creatures sighting? I don't think so. The only swimming Bigfoot that I know of are in pretty good sized rivers. There have been a few in Pennsylvania. In fact, the Allegheny River north of Pittsburgh has had several sightings of Bigfoot in the water, and actually some people saying they swim. I do remember an account near the Allegheny River, not far from, what town was that? I can't remember what town, but it was on the Yacht. And it was in Pennsylvania as well. So, Dagnammit says that sighting was in Evansville, Indiana, on the Ohio River. Okay, I'm gonna have to look for that. I think I know which one you're talking about. It does seem somewhat familiar. We've had a lot of weird sightings on the Ohio River. In fact, the Ohio River has bull sharks that literally swim up the Mississippi into the Ohio. It's happened, you know. Their osmosis is to that point where they can actually survive in fresh water. But bull shark, pretty good size. Pelican X vibe. It was blue. They couldn't get it off her legs. Okay. Interesting. One cat away from crazy midnights. Suggestion for future show, haunted lighthouses, keeping it with aquatic theme. Okay, I'll see what I got. Years ago, I had a lot of them. I don't know how many I got left. Maybe 15 years ago. Pelican X vibe. She was told that the mud they found on her came from a deep cave. Okay. If anybody's got a link to it or to any mention of that, please send it to my email, Lon Strickler at phantomsmonsters.com. I'd really appreciate it. I'd like to look into that. Ooh, let's see. What else we got? Soupy Gato. Hi, Lon. Any Great Lake sightings? I live near the bay that becomes Lake Huron, and I thought I saw something years ago. Love what you do. Big thank you. I can't really think of any in that area. We have had sightings on Lake Erie. People have said they've seen serpents in Lake Erie. I actually think what they saw were lampreys. Lake Erie just used to be inundated with lampreys at one point. It's not as bad as it used to be. But as far as the other lakes, there have been some things up in Superior, near Lake Superior, along the Wisconsin shoreline. Even some reptilian sightings. In fact, I had a reptilian sighting reported to me many, many years ago. In Lake Michigan, not too far from Chicago. And I've been looking for that for a long time now, and I still haven't been able to find it, unfortunately. Okay, folks. Well, hey, thanks for coming in and watching and chatting. If you donated, it's truly appreciated. Your support is what makes all this possible. Please like, subscribe, and share. I am going to have a Phantoms and Monsters Radio Insiders members only chat. Not next Wednesday, but the Wednesday after, and I'll have it up so you all get plenty of notice on it. And if you had a sighting or encounter report you'd like to be considered for the show or for the blog, please feel free to contact me. So, until next week, you all have a good weekend. Stay safe, and I'll talk to you all later. Take care.